It is now 6 o'clock, and I call this regularly scheduled city council meeting to order. For our invocation, I would ask that we observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Councilman Reel will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 is our consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda any council member would wish to remove? If not, is there a motion related to it?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 5, presentation to City Council by members of the public according to the rules listed in the agenda. I have no cards. Is there anyone here wishing to address the council? Please do. Come forward. State your name and address.
Afternoon, Mayor,
Well, good afternoon.
Council. My name is Joe McCracken. A lot of the times, I'm at 1205 Northwood Court. I have a couple of handouts, if I may.
Please hand them out, yeah.
I'll try to make this as brief as possible.
Yeah. We can share and you two can share.
No, I'm holding that. I don't have my glasses.
Okay.
More. Thank you for such late notice. Opportunity to visit with you briefly. Important topic. Been an important topic in Texas for a long time. I hear it about every 2 years. You know why. I'm going to offer this. Your new 22 assessed valuations. Appraisal District mails those on the 14th of April. You need to call and ask today what percentage of city's revenue comes from the property tax. But you know what that number is, and you know how important it is. What I have here is this first big sheet. And I've talked to a lot of city people today, businesses basically. I hope that they pay attention to this April 14th statement. Where I'm making this comparison here, not of property in Commerce or Quinlan, property in Commerce, and the two pieces are about a mile apart. And I've made a square around the 2020 values. The BL2, you'll notice the value is 69,000. For Benson Brothers Record, you'll notice it's 14,000. And next to the year, 2020, in the middle, improvements, they're in about the 5,000 every year. BO2 is in 41,120, 45,919, 69,500, 39,500. The company's not been in business for 6 years. At least one of the councilmen here can verify that. He's commonly delivering a sales brochure, doing his job, but he's been on the property, no, year after year. I have fought I have contended with this appraisal district for about 2.5 years. The individual sheet that you have, this big sheet is the real property. The small sheet is the personal property. And I've offered everything from Federal Motor Carrier. I didn't want to burden you with all kinds of paperwork that I've provided them over the last couple of years. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration says that we ended in 16, began in 02, but it was recognized in 03 because there's a 9-month waiting period as they come out and investigate is your equipment doing the things it's supposed to do. And everything up to and including our tax reports for 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. No BO2 logistics income anywhere on that return. And you can see those valuations that they've assessed for property personally. What's unique about this year? My issue will be resolved. There's a judge that'll, at some point in time, maybe not the lower judge, but somewhere up the line, there'll be a higher judge that'll rectify this situation. And Mayor, as you know, automobile assessments, those properties, there's probably differences even in this particular city on those kind of valuations. I have really found that the appraisal district is woefully inadequate. They've not understood the statute. They've not understood even the language on the greeting that you get when you call into the office. Since 1981, we're so fair, we equalize. That's not been the case in this. There are more properties in this in the local area. I have a couple of houses up behind Texas Tea. The valuations there include the 2 apartments that are above the liquor store, which hasn't been there since I've been here, since 02. I've talked to D&E down here. There's a lot to the south of the parts store. Still shows a building on that property. I don't know how long that's been done. They're just not doing the job they're supposed to do. But one of the things that they should be doing on behalf of the county, which I spoke to the commissioners last week, and the cities, and any other political subdivision in this county, is to avoid things like this. This company that's down the street from my own on the main road that goes to Paris, I'm not even going to guess what the income is in that operation. But they're not paying their fair share to you. I can guarantee you that just by looking at this. And I could pick a phone book up and pull any page out that says 903 as an area code. Ask them, how long has it been since you've seen a BL2 truck go down by your house? Long time. I don't anticipate questions. I don't think it's a question answer period. I just wanted to offer this as an explanation. Kind of some things that has been going on, and in particular with me. It's been hard to think about coming and visiting with each of you, except a certain period of times that we're together, when I know that there's this tax filing going on that's hovering around here. But there are several thousand people in this county that will be hovering after April the 14th if things like this continue. And I don't see a change. I was first elected in 1980 to the House in Missouri. Charlie Schneider was the county assessor in St. Louis County. He came under fire from new construction. Some similarities here with Texas that I've noticed. It went to the Supreme Court. After 4 benches, it went to the Supreme Court. I think it was 95 or 6. Supreme Court ordered the assessment. I was the vice chairman of the House Committee on Property Equalization. It is such a complicated process. The Senate didn't even organize a committee until later in the year. And unlike Texas, I want to make a comment about that, having sessions every other year in a state of this size, magnitude of the change that it is. Missouri is in session every year, 5 months, 6 months, 5 months, 6 months. So So we were able to address it. It did take 14 months to do it. But I have seen so many similarities to what happened up there as what's going on here. I haven't looked at statute. I can go look at statute and tell exactly when these amendments came in, what date they were. But this law is continually falling behind. And the problem with it, there is no enforcement or correction for the appraisal districts. I have talked about commercial property, Hopkins County, Lamar, Waco, Burnett, Travis. For assessing commercial, there's some variations in all of it. And yet the county political subdivision, the city political subdivisions, and any other political subdivision, water district, fire district, library district, doesn't have the right to inquire about that process. Right, Mr. Manager? Now, I have some videos that show 12, 14, 16, all the way up to last year. This guy, this lieutenant governor, I think, Republican, keeps saying, well, we're going to stop this. We're going to fix property taxes. We're going to eliminate property taxes. And a few other statewide office holders are saying the same thing. Texas will never eliminate property taxes. But Texas can fix a lot of the property tax problems that they've got. Not only are there some people overvalued, like I kind of understand, who knows how many properties out there are undervalued? And that affects every one of you, hospital district, school district, all of you. It can be fixed, but you can't expect it to just go away. It will not. And Missouri has an income tax. The only thing I can say about that is, I hear people all the time complaining about, they don't complain about their relationship in reference to their valuation to the neighbor. Their complaints are, the taxes are just too high. Well, I kind of understand that in a way. All ships rise in a flood tide. But there's no real true mechanism that you can look at and read on the paper there how to fix this or how to make it equal. The biggest difference that Texas would never vote for, the income tax. Every week, you can look at this little stub and know exactly how many taxes you pay. But we were so far away from doing that, I don't expect it ever to happen. But I do expect property equalization may begin in 6 or 7 months. And it may have started in Hunt County. I have a perfect example of what's happening, and it's everywhere. I'm not just saying, you know, it's Socrates. He said, how do you know where my shoe pinches? Well, a lot of people know where my shoe pinches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate the update. Anyone else wish to speak to the council? Not, we go to item 6, presentation, discussion, and possible action on a resolution accepting the financial audit for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021.
Bless you.
All right, so good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight via Zoom, we have Mr. Tommy Nelson, who is with our auditing firm, Scott Singleton and Fincher. So I'll stay up here and he'll present via Zoom. If you have any questions, just because we're going through the laptop, I'll stay up here so that I will convey your questions to Tommy so I can make sure he can hear them properly, if that works for you, Tommy, okay?
Works for me. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
I think they're all saying yes.
Okay. All right, good. Hopefully there is a time to go from there. So, let's glad we do it this way. You know, I actually have down some, wanted to try to get out of here soon, so we appreciate letting us do it this way. First of all, I mean, this is March. Thanks to Jamie and her staff, you know, we're able to be here this early. So, let me just say, 2 years it hadn't happened because of some significant, well, last year it was okay, but a couple of years before that, we had a little trouble getting finished because things were a little messier than they are. This year they're very good, and we were able to get through with our work in a really timely manner, and we appreciate Jamie and her staff making that possible. So the report is marked draft that you had. That is only because we're waiting on a few items of confirmation that we needed to receive before we can take the words draft off the report. We received those items today, so we're ready to release the clean report. It was just a little too late to get it clean by the time we sent you the draft, a few days ago. So hopefully you've had the draft for a few days. I encourage you to ask questions if you have questions. I'm going to hit a few of the highlights. I think what's going to happen, I was going to share the screen, but it doesn't look like the share screen looks like it's disabled. So I'm going to tell you page numbers. The page numbers are the page numbers in the report. And we'll go to those page numbers. They'll be pretty close together for the most part, and kind of show you the highlights. We got a lot of information in the report. I'm just going to hit the things I think that are most of interest to you, but I'm happy to answer, any of the questions that you may have.
Do you want to try again? I think she's enabled the share screen.
Okay.
On my TV.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
We can.
What page is it on?
Okay. So you can see it?
Yes, sir.
All right, great.
What
So
page
page
is that?
14, if you want to turn to it in the report, but this is really the only place in the report. It's actually a part of management's discussion and analysis, but it allows you to, I can make that bigger. Make it bigger. There, that's a little better. So it's the only place in the report where we can give you some comparative data. And a few things I'd point out, if we look at the far right-hand columns, property taxes, your ad valorem taxes, those are up, $239,000, $3,190,000 compared to $2,951,000. That is without a tax increase, so that means your property values, as you know, are continuing in commerce, and that's allowing property tax revenues to go up without any increase in rates. The other thing I would point out is the third line, your sales taxes. They're up $150,000, $1,294,000 compared to $1,141,000. Again, that's the second thing that's a real good indication of the health of your local economy. Those sales tax revenues are continuing to go up. Both very good indicators for your local economy. And kind of down toward the lower end of the revenues, you see federal and state grants. You did receive some COVID-related funding. Now, you received more than that, $537,000. You did receive more than that. However, you only recognize that as revenue as you spend it, and most of that's going to be spent in FY22. So we have a lot of it still in deferred revenue at the end of the year. But those revenues are up as well. So overall revenues, all funds, $7,781,000 compared to $6,848,000 last year. Again, those are the three line items that went up the most that contributed to that increase. Now I want to kind of swing back over. If you remember this from last year, we have a couple of extra funds that are presented in their own columns this year. Last year we had general fund, debt service fund, and then other governmental funds. But because you did receive significant grants, and we issued some bonds that for the general fund expenditures we put in the capital projects fund. So those funds got big enough, size-wise, either in terms of revenue or money in the bank or assets, liabilities, or anything else, that they required their own columns. So we got a couple of extra columns in there this year that weren't there. But I want to go back over to the general fund and just look at that one by itself, because that's where most of your operating activity takes place. So have general fund only there on the left-hand side, $5,793,712. Total expenditures, $5,470,107. You see that about toward the bottom of revenues over expenditures of $323,605 in the general fund. We had some other activity from sale of capital assets and some small transfers that affected that, and made the final change in fund balance for the year, the third line up there in the left-hand column, 333,385. We had fund balance at the beginning of the year, 2,061,907, so that left us with fund balance in the general fund, 2,395,292. Now, one of the ways we look at your financial health is we take your fund balance as a numerator, your total expenditures as a denominator, get a percentage, multiply times 365, and it sort of tells us how many days of next year's budget you're starting FY22 with. And in your case, it's about 40% of your annual expenditures, or about 160 days. That's excellent, so you should be very happy. We encourage a minimum of 90. You're well in excess of that, so you should be pretty happy with where your fund balance is in the general fund. Now, the others that are large, you have a large, the third column, the capital projects fund. You see fund balance in that fund is a little over $2 billion. However, that's pretty much all spoken for capital projects, so we don't really consider that when we're looking at the general fund activity. It's sort of separate, and this presentation allows that to happen. So if we look back at the balance sheet, which is back one page, I'm going forward, but it's back one page, you'll see the balance sheets for the respective funds, and again, you're in excellent shape financially. The general fund, again, is total assets $2,700,000, and liabilities small, $244,850. So fund balance is $2,395,292. I will point out in the capital projects fund, we do $2 million in cash, but that's pretty much that's part of the bond issue, and it's designated for capital improvements. And then in the grant project account, we do have $1.2 million in cash there, but most of that is unearned grant revenues that you'll have to spend that to earn it. So that will come into play next year, and more than likely, for those of you who are in accounting lingo, you probably will be subject to a single audit requirement next year, because as you spend that money, the threshold for expenditures to be subject to single audit is $750,000 of federal expenditures, and if you spend that $1,199,000 that's presently in deferred revenue right here next year, that's going to do it for you. So we didn't quite get there this year, but I would think we probably will in 2022, which means we have to audit the compliance with the grant agreements. Is what that really means as far as single audit is concerned. The water and sewer fund uses different accounting principles, so we look at it a little differently. It uses principles that are more like a for-profit business, and so its financial statements look more like a for-profit business rather than a governmental fund. And you'll see total revenues in the water and sewer fund, $5,308,000 compared to $5,051,000 last year. That's up considerably over last year, a couple $100,000. Your expenses were pretty much the same, $5,497,000 as they were last year, which left us with operating income that's $188,000 in the red. But I would point out a couple of things in the expenses. The water fund's share of the bond issuance costs, the second expense up there from the bottom, right above other operating expenses, is $59,474. That's a one-time cost last year. For those issues, you may have some more this year. I know you have another issue planned, but that's included. And we also have about middle of the line $978,000 of depreciation, which is not really a cash flow item, although you do eventually have to replace the system as wear and tear goes on. It does not present a cash flow issue. So from a cash flow standpoint, it's still very good. Then we have non-operating revenues and expenses, most of which is interest, which left us with a loss in that fund of $236,878. And we still have a sizable net position for because because the water and sewer infrastructure is capitalized, most of it is tied up in capital assets. But you'll see that position, third column in there at the end of the year, and the funds was 10,127,89. We look at the balance sheet for the water, for the primary funds, water and sewer and waste funds. You'll see total, with the way we look at this fund, since it has capital assets included in this, the funds known, we look at your current ratio. So we look at your total current assets. You can see 2021 column, total current assets, 1,542,000. You have some restricted current assets that are to be used again for capital outlay, so we don't include those in the calculation. We compare that to your total current liabilities, which you'll see are 1,283,842. We do a ratio on that, and in your case, you have $1.20 of current assets for every $1 of current liabilities, which is a good ratio. Anything in excess of 1 to 1 is considered good. And you'll see, just looking back up at the rest of the items on the balance sheet, a lot of capital assets. The infrastructure represents such a big part of the water and sewer fund. Again, we look more at the current ratio than we do fund equity in that fund when we're looking at the health of that fund. So those are the financial statements. Just a couple of things that you may find of interest. So this is a historical schedule of the taxable property valuation for the city. We have 10 years. You see, I guess there's 7 years that show up. You scroll on down, there are 10. But you do see what I was talking about, which you already know. I know you see these numbers every year, but just to kind of put them all down on a piece of paper where you can see them. Total taxable valuation, $390 million last year compared to $353 million the year before, $325. You can just see the increases continuing. That's a good sign of economic health for your city, and we've been seeing that pretty much everywhere. As you know, property values are kind of at historic highs in Texas, and really around the country for that matter. So that's a good indication of financial health for you. And then one other thing that we have looked at before, just to show you how it works, we've looked at your net pension liability. I know you put some extra money in there to try to get that work down, and that, along with some really good market conditions, have done that. So we will eventually have a 10-year schedule here of this, what we call the pension liability changes. We've got 7 out there now, so we're getting pretty close. The important number is the net pension liabilities. This is right down here, about in the screen you're looking at, about 2/3 of the way down the page, and you'll see that it's almost gone at the end of December 2020. Now, the actuaries, takes them a while to get their work out, so it's not as of September 30th, which is your year end. It's as of December 31st of 20. So the market continued to do well in 21. It's not doing so well right this minute, but so that it's very possibly they may swing over to an asset the next time we look at that report. But you'll see the net pension liability was $15,779 at the end of the year. That's the difference in the present value of your plan assets and the present value of the plan liabilities. Now, I will explain this before. There are a lot of estimates that go into this particular calculation, so it's not set in stone that that's where you'll wind up. It just gives you a pretty good idea of how you're progressing. If you look back just a few years, we've been up $1.2 million 2 years ago. Then it went down. Now it's gone down some more. And the big difference is this net investment income line. Your additional contributions definitely do help, but the net investment income line is what really makes the difference in that. And so that has significantly improved again at the end of December of 21. It wouldn't surprise me. We had another pretty good year in the market in 21. May change in 22. We'll see. But anyway, it has definitely improved, and we're in much better shape there on the estimate of the net pension liability than we have been ever before. So congratulations on that. Again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those. Or you may have something somewhere else in the report you have a question about. I'm happy to try to answer that too. I will say one more time, thank you to Jamie, first staff. We couldn't be here now this quick after the end of the year without really good work on their part. Every year we do it, she keeps asking for some of our work papers to kind of know what she needs to do next time. She keeps ticking those off every year, so it's getting a little better all the time. So, Jamie, thank you for that. And any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those.
No questions? We certainly appreciate the report.
Again, thank you for letting me do it this way. It's a big help to me. I'm out of town. Let's we can get it done and get it issued, and we can keep going on down the road. So I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Tommy.
All right. I'll give them a few minutes for any more questions, but when you're
We're done.
through with me, that's what I have to say.
I think we're,
We're
I
done.
think they're gonna move on. Thank you, Tommy, I appreciate it.
we appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, we do have a resolution to adopt approving that report.
Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the resolution accepting the financial audit for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Good job, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Item 7, presentation of the 2021 racial profiling report in compliance with the Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 2.131, Article 2.138, discussion and acceptance of same.
Racial profiling report. There's no objection to this report. For the year 2021, January to December, we had a total of 2,660 stops. Of those, traffic stops, we had a total of 1863 on city streets, 35 on just highways, 13 on county roads, 664 traffic stops on the state highway, 41 stops on private property. Of those traffic stops, there were a total of 55 searches that were conducted. 13 of those searches were consent searches. 26 were probable cause searches. Of those searches conducted, 35 ended up in the discovery of contraband. The traffic stops, a total of 1,513 warnings were written and 1,031 citations were written of all those traffic stops. There was a total of 23 arrests made based upon the violation of the penal code. 5 arrests made based upon violation of traffic law, and 44 arrests made due to outstanding. Any questions?
I have a question for you. In the city, it was 1863, correct? City streets. Right.
Page 3 of 8, that's correct.
1863.
Okay, 1863. Is that considering Live Oak, Cover, and Park as a highway or a city street? Because all 3 of those are actually highways.
Right. My understanding, Park Street's considered a highway. Live Oak and Polk Street, I'm not sure. Historic Road, Cole, considered city streets.
Okay. Yeah, because I think Live Oak is a highway from the football field all the way to
Washington.
the funeral home, yeah, Washington Street. And I was just wondering how you recorded that. Okay, appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Item 8, discussion and possible action on a resolution by the City Council of the City of Commerce, Texas, adopting a set of financial policies.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we have to go racial profiling. We have to accept it.
Says a presentation.
Then this is
Say-
discussion and
Resolution.
acceptance of same.
Where?
At the end of that agenda.
Discussion and acceptance of same. I stand corrected. Is there a motion related to item 7 before Jamie begins?
I move that we accept the 2021 racial profiling report as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Now, item 8.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So, the City of Commerce has been in need of updating our financial policies for a few years. It is best practice to review certain policies periodically and make sure that they are still in line with our latest laws, regulations, and actual practices that city staff participate in on a daily basis or annual basis. So today we are presenting kind of like a financial policy book that is broken down into 3 separate policies that include our fund balance policy, our investment policy, and our debt management policy. These policies were mentioned in our last 2 bond rating reports as adequate and also needing improvement, or they notated, I believe, on our debt management that we were in the process of working on one. The debt management policy, we have not, at least I have not found where we've had one before. It's not something that is required. It's just something that is GFOA, Government Financial Officers Association, best practices, say that this is one of those that they say is the best practice. So it kind of just says that you're going to be good stewards of the debt that you get for, you know, your citizens and your residents and those that are going to be paying for those funds. And so with the help of Hilltop Securities, which is our financial advisors, they helped me redo our existing policies, make sure that we had the right regulations in there. We kind of talked about what our typical day-to-day policy is. So like our fund balance, we have a really healthy fund balance like he just talked about. He talked about how we have, you know, over the 90 days, but we also have right now 40%. So we kind of talked about what our fund balance policy should look like right now. And so we kind of talked about that and worked that into what our fund balance, and then knowing that we have CIP projects and we have street projects, what should we do with that extra fund balance, you know? At the end, after the audit's over, and we know what, you know, that reserve looks like, let's move that over to CIP or move that over to equipment replacement fund, whichever fund, you know, you don't have to decide that year or that, you know, it doesn't have to be this one, it could be either or. And so working on these, we can reevaluate them every year. The investment policy is the only one that is required by law out of these 3. And so that one is something that we always bring to council, but we actually haven't changed the language in it for a very long time. And so we reevaluated all of them. We gave them all a good scrub, make them look all nice and clean and kind of up to date and modernize them. I like the idea of putting them in a financial book and in a financial policy book because it forces us to look at all of the policies at once. And our goal is to look at some more of these best practice policies, because there are other ones out there, and kind of start growing this book, but not overdo it. Because there are some out there that maybe for a city our size, it just doesn't make sense, you know. But there are some other ones that are really good, so cash handling and things like that. Fixed assets, let's get that written down in a more solid financial policy than just like a small little snippet that we currently have. And so, my goal here today is to present these policies to you and ask that you guys, adopt the financial policy book with these policies as written. Any questions?
If no questions, is there a motion?
Mayor, if I may point out right quick, one of the policies that we're proposing is a fund balance policy. And within that, we have a differentiation between our general fund and our utility fund because they operate on a different accounting basis, they're a different business model. And so for the general fund, we have a minimum fund balance of 25% with a target of 35%. In the utility, we have a minimum of 25% with a target of 45%. One of the reasons you want a higher target in an enterprise fund is the volatility of utility sales and that revenue stream. I think it's important to note that with the audit we just approved, we currently sit at an 18% fund balance in the utility fund, which is below the 25% target. There's been a number of years in which the city has used the utility fund to generate cash on behalf of the general fund, and it has pulled that balance down where it is now below 25%. And so we started in this past budget, and we'll be looking at future budgets to rebuild that fund balance. Because if we don't get it back over 25%, at some point that will negatively impact our bond rating, which is impacting our cost of capital, which in cost hurts the tax and ratepayers. So I just want to make sure that we accentuate that as we adopt this policy.
Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the financial policy book as written.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 9, a resolution of the City of Commerce City Council to approve the purchase of a portable generator from Clifford Power for use by the Commerce Public Utilities Department and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute any necessary documents.
Mayor, Council, Howdy Lisenby, City Manager. As you recall, we recently did an item similar to this at the water treatment plant in which we're about to issue a construction contract for the rehabilitation of the filters at the water treatment plant. That project includes the placement of a permanent generator, hopefully, knock on wood, so if we have another winter freeze event that loses power at the treatment plant, we'll have a generator on site ready to make sure that we don't completely lose power and that we maintain our ability to produce water. In last month's city council, well, not this month, we had a special meeting on the 1st. We awarded a construction contract for the raw water pump station to improve the motor controls out at Lake Tawakoni. One of the components of that project was the proposed permanent placement of a generator at the raw water pump station. I'm trying to alliterate my words because they can be a tongue twister. The cost of that permanent generator was approximately $176,000. It have located a generator on site at the pump station that was always there. As we were looking at our options, we felt like it would be more advantageous for the city to acquire a mobile generator that's mounted on a trailer so that we have the flexibility to take it at multiple locations should we lose power. In the last 2 years, when we had power loss events, the raw water pump station has not lost power, but we've had facilities in town that did. And so having a mobile generator allows us to react to wherever the power outage is and gives us more flexibility from an emergency management point of view. And so we went out through the state purchasing contracts and priced a portable generator that gives us the capabilities that we need. The pricing came in at $174,202. And so staff is proposing to take the money that would have purchased a permanent generator and instead buy a trailer-mounted generator that gives us more flexibility. It's the same cost, and we have funding within our capital projects budget. And so we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
I recommend we approve the purchase of the electrical generator for the from Clifford Power and allow the city manager the authority to execute the purchase.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 10, discussion and possible action on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Commerce, Texas and Hunt County, declaring unopposed candidates for the office of mayor and place 4 for the City Council, declaring each unopposed candidate elected to office, and approving the order of cancellation to cancel the general and special municipal election scheduled to be held on May 7th, 2022, providing that this ordinance shall be cumulative of all such ordinances, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Did you write that, Molly?
I sure did,
You did well.
with Charles' help.
Wish I could read it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you all recall, in January, you all called a general municipal election for May 7th, 2022, for the purpose of electing a mayor. That filing period ran from January to mid-February. Shortly after the filing period began, we had an existing council member, Mr. Teddy Reel, file for a place on the ballot. As such, that called for the need for you all to have a special election in order to fill the vacancy that was created by Mr. Reel's filing for mayor. So we kind of somewhat overlapped the filing period for place 4, and that filing period ran from about mid-February to very early March. And during that time, we had one candidate file for the position of place 4, Mr. Jim Ayers. As a result of both of the filing periods yielding one candidate for each spot, we have the ability for the governing body to cancel that election. I would like to say that tonight you'll be approving this ordinance that cancels the election, and you'll be signing off on the cancellation and the order that cancels the election, as well as 2 certificates for unopposed candidacy for both of your council members, but they will not take office until after the May council meeting. Texas Election Code says that they don't take office until after the actual election day and before the deadline for canvassing the results of that election. So tonight you're approving the ordinance simply to cancel the election, and you're approving certificates of unopposed candidacy for Mr. Reel and Mr. Ayers, and then we will elect them, actually issue their certificates of election at the May council meeting. One other thing I wanted to say was there are 2 constitutional amendments that will be on this ballot. So while the school district has they also had 3 members that ran unopposed, 3 school board members. So while they did not have a need for an election and the city council did not have a need for an election, the county will still be hosting an election due to those 2 constitutional amendments, which were a result of the 2021 legislative session. And the City of Commerce will be a polling or a voting location, as we always are, on that Saturday, May 7th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to still give our citizens a chance to vote. So while we won't be conducting early voting, we will still be a polling place for Election Day for that. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Do we have a meeting to canvass a non-election?
We'll, yes, in short. And then you'll issue certificates of election.
Okay.
We still have to canvass the results.
Any questions?
We want to thank both of you for running clean campaigns.
Yeah, and very efficient.
There's a cost savings.
All right. Have we a motion?
I move that we approve the ordinance canceling the May 7th, 2022 general and special election and declare both candidates, Mayor Teddy Reel and place 4 Jim Ayers, elected due to unopposed candidacy status.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. City Manager's report.
Mayor, Council, as a matter of responding to public input, Mr. McCracken did come and visit with me this week and talk through some of his concerns with the appraisal district. I did inform him that city staff is not allowed to discuss property valuations with the appraisal district or with Mr. South as chief appraiser. And so while he did want to discuss specific details of these lots about why they were valued the way they were, I let him speak his mind, but did not commit to making any conversations or phone calls. We will not be discussing property values with the appraisal district. And it's, I think, important to note that whether it is over or undervalued depends on whether it's your property or somebody else's. If it's somebody else's property, we tend to believe it's undervalued. If it's my property, it's overvalued. And so the city just does not get involved in those discussions. It is the charge of this council to adopt the tax rate that is applied to the valuations that are determined by the appraisal district. And so the city as a local government has no input, no say, and no influence over those valuations. And if we attempt to do so, it is a violation of state law. I don't look good in orange, and so we will not be doing that. And so the public is welcome to talk to us about those valuations. We will listen and sympathize, but we will not take action because we can't. Ms. Jamie, do we have a financial update?
So let's talk property taxes. Thank you for the segue. So as of February 2022, we have reached 95% of our budgeted property tax revenue for a total of $3.2 million. My brain just stopped there. $3.2 million. We have a total of $154,000 in property tax revenue remaining before we hit our budgeted revenue, which is, again, only 98% of our overall tax levy. So we are very close this year, but again, remember, majority of people do pay their property taxes in January, February timeframe, because that's when your property tax is due. So we'll see a big drop, you know, over the next couple of months of how much this actually moves. I will say that our delinquent taxes actually decreased this year, or this month, in collections. And it was because of a very large refund that was given. I don't know why. It was a very large refund that was given on delinquent taxes that had been paid. So, but they did not affect our penalties and interest that we have already received for the year, so yay. That still is good for us. So we were doing really well, but they took about $15,000 back. So the next thing that we have is the city sanitation contract. They came to Howdy and I in November and requested their rate change, which in accordance with their contract, it was 180-day notice. So that will go into effect in May. And so I wanted to put in front of you guys what that schedule of rates will be. This is not affecting what we are charging our citizens and our residents. This is just what we will be paying city sanitation. It's based on CPI, which we got the rate from CPI as of January 2021, which is per our contract. So that was an increase of 4.4%. So we put the schedule together based on their current rates and just did an increase of 4.4. So just out of due diligence, I want you guys to be aware that they have requested a rate increase, and for the contract, this is the rate increase. Any questions on city sanitation? All right. So moving over into our financials. These financials are for January. So year-to-date general fund is up in the top left corner. It's just an overview of where we are so far in our budget. And as of January, we're about 33% into our budget for the fiscal year. The budget for the year is, it's really kind of hard to see there, but the budget for the year is a little over 200, talk today. I keep looking at Becky for some reason, I'm sorry. But we're under budget right now for expenses for the general fund. And then the large graph kind of in the middle is by department. And so we can go by each department, seeing as where they are actuals per budget as of January 2022. Does anybody have any questions kind of specifically? And if you remember, some of these departments, like if you, governmental affairs, they have very large payments, like our insurance, that we have to pay up front. And so over the next few months, we'll see that kind of balancing out. And then if you also remember fire and police, the budget's gonna be skewed because of their premium pay. We are transferring that expense out and moving it over into our grant fund, which is where our art funds live. We budgeted it slightly different than how we're actually doing the accounting for it, just because it's a little bit easier that way. Anybody have any questions on the general fund financials as of January? Okay. Public utility funds, same thing. So again, on the top left, you're looking at your year-to-date, kind of where we are, revenue and expenses. Right now, we are ahead on revenue compared to expenses. We are slightly below budget when it comes to our expenses. Water production, again, is a little bit over, and that's because we have that large payment that we pay for Upper Trinity, the Cooper Lake, but you should see that hopefully start shifting. And that one is a pass-through. So I've already invoiced that back out, and so it nets out, right? And so other than that, solid waste, I am seeing that even though we have not had that increase yet, I would be prepared after May to start seeing this kind of where we're under budget. Maybe we're gonna start getting a little bit closer, because they did ask for that rate increase, but they asked for it in November after we had already passed budget, right? And so luckily it's not coming until May. And so we will do better at anticipating their next rate increase a little bit earlier this next budget. So anybody have any questions about public utility?
Now, do they have the ability to come in and ask again for city sanitation?
It's like on a year.
On a yearly?
Mhm.
So the next time that they can ask is probably November, around November?
Yeah, and
So-
we put that 180 days in so that we could work it into the budget appropriately, so that it's only hitting one budget year at a time.
So we can anticipate it this next time, just in case.
Exactly, yeah.
With the fuel costs, they probably will.
Oh. But, you know, it's also more beneficial for us for them to ask for it every year. So we don't get in that same position we were when they're like, hey, I
Way
haven't asked for
behind.
8 years.
Yeah.
I want 100% increase.
Yeah.
You know? I want to draw your attention to our kiosks. We have a new kiosk out front that I am super excited about. It allows us now to take your utility payments. If you come up and our doors are closed at 4:45, and you want to make your utility payment and you have your credit card, even though you're still able to make credit card payments online, you can still make them by phone. You you can still use the drop box across the street. That hasn't changed. But if you come up and you want to make, and you just want to make it, you just want to make a payment, you've got your credit card, you just want to make a payment, you can make it right here at our kiosk. These kiosks were purchased using our CARES funding. And so this is something that we've been working on for over a year. But getting the software up and running and getting the kiosks built, we all know how the supply chain has been. Personalized Printing, I think, did a wonderful job on the windows. And I think that it all kind of came together beautifully. Right now, that machine is not taking cash. That's next in my step, is for it to start taking cash. But I want to make sure it's running appropriately and we get all the bugs out before I start saying, stick your money in there. So, but then ultimately it will be able to take dollar bills and no coins, just cash. And so, and it's 24/7 available, and it'll also take permit fees. So if people need to make RSI payments or building permit fees or things like that, it'll also do those types of things. So we're excited. I'm excited. Revenue's great. Thank you, guys.
Thank
and
you.
I just got sales tax today, so I don't have it. I apologize.
Ms. Molly?
So I have a few events for you. The annual Chamber of Commerce Chamber Banquet will take place on Thursday, March 24th, beginning at 6 o'clock. So if you have not yet bought your tickets, you should do so. Also for the Chamber of Commerce, they're hosting their spring golf tournament that they do annually every year. That will be on April 22nd. And then finally, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, they have their annual Spring Boat Arc Car Show, and that will take place on Saturday the 30th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. In downtown. So you should stop by and take a look at their car selection. That's all I have for.
Molly, one addition, because we have one more meeting and then this falls right the following week, is on April the 25th. The Children's Museum will once again have the auction at the university.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we haven't had it the last 2 years.
Do they buy tickets in advance?
Yes,
Okay.
tickets will be going, we'll have tickets, tickets are printed, they're just not ready, but by next week we'll have that available.
Awesome, and that's April 25th.
Mhm.
That's all I have, Howdy.
We have no other updates to give, so we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
If there are none, item 12 is an executive session. We will meet under the portions of the law 551.0711 and 551.0712 and discuss 3 items for lien forgiveness and 1 lawsuit. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I move that we go into executive session, so moved.
Is there a second? Well, at 7:03, we will go into executive session.
Y'all cold out here? I'm freezing. I saw you cover up and I saw Jean put her coat on. Was that- I guess we better get.
We have no action.
No business with that. At 7:41, this meeting is adjourned.
Do you want crackers?
No, good. Thanks.
Just so you know what that,
We will probably gift that to the mayor. He is so affectionate.
yes, it is.
I have one at the house. It's this size.
Oh, a
Would you
little
like to have one? I'll let you have a good one.
Ding,
Yeah, we can put a piece
little
of metal.
bell. Ding, 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 ding.
What? Did you ever see the one about the cat? Huge.